Welcome to another edition of WVD Monthly, presented by XenTegra, with your host Andy Whiteside and Pete Downing, your source for all things Azure and Microsoft WVD.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of What's New in WVD. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I'm being joined today by Pete Downing, who will be with me every month. The goal here is to do a monthly podcast and talk about what Microsoft has released in their blog, their monthly blog associated with Windows Virtual Desktop, and make sure we're getting that content out to people and give you another way to consume it. Pete, how's it going?
It's going good, Andy. Can't complain. We just got off a nice 3-day weekend. So, hey, the weather was nice and it's a good way to end the summer, so to speak.
Yeah, the weather in Charlotte, North Carolina today is very nice end of summer weather. I'm absolutely certain there's a heat wave coming. We're not done by any means. You're new to the area. You'll see.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm excited about doing this podcast. I think there's a lot of great changes that happen with WVD, and as they unroll, we can talk about them, the pros and cons, and how things have been going in the world of WVD, right?
So I talked to 2 customers today, and they're all trying to figure out what their future looks like, and that's specifically around Citrix or VMware Horizon and WVD. And Windows 10, multi-session enterprise desktops, they know that Azure-related desktops is somewhere that they want to go for some of their business, and they're really curious to see what Microsoft does to take a step forward in terms of making WVD a real enterprise class solution to compete with the likes of VMware Horizon and Citrix virtual apps and desktops.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting, and what makes it interesting, in my opinion, is that Microsoft is moving fast, but they also recognize they have to focus on the stability and scalability of WVD. So, yeah, there's still parity issues between let's say a Citrix and a WVD client, and so the question I think a lot of customers need to ask is, is the native experience good enough versus customers who are already running a Citrix or a VMware, and then those customers need to look at does switching make sense? And in a lot of cases it doesn't, but I think Microsoft will quickly enhance their client as things unfold in the next I'll say year.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting topic for you. Do you remember when VMware first got into the desktop and app virtualization side of the business, and it wasn't just virtual machine virtualization anymore? In other words, they stepped into the world that Citrix has lived in for X number of years before that. Do you remember at that point in time, we all felt like, it'll take them decades to get caught up, and arguably VMware has not has caught up with Citrix, and they're very similar in capabilities. One has one feature the other one might not have, but for the most part, it's feature for feature, and that's really kind of happened in the last 6, 7, 5 years. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you it would take forever to get caught up or close. And now they're pretty much there. Do you think we'll be saying the same thing about Microsoft in 5 years?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think you and I will be focused on drastically different areas of the business when it comes 5 years out, and it will encompass a lot of Microsoft, I have a feeling. So
and think about it too, Microsoft doesn't have nearly as far to come. They've been doing some of this stuff for 20 plus years now. They were in the trenches with Citrix way back in the day, so it's not like they're starting from scratch either.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, they you got the RDP client built right into the OS, and they're essentially taking that and they kind of rewinded it a little bit, but they're bringing it back to the forefront of getting full parity with even what's there today, and then focused on enhancements with the remote desktop client. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast they move in the client side of the space, the access side of the space. And then the other big area is going to be interesting to watch is the partner ecosystem and what partners will do. So, we can talk about a lot of the ecosystem partners and what they're doing to enhance some of the features, such as like MSIX and App Attach, or, even displaying apps and desktops, right? There's a lot of great ecosystem partners that are trying to help Microsoft and enhance their functionality. So.
Well, that's another good conversation too. I've never seen a mainstream product like this get embraced by so many third-party vendors so quickly. It's like it's a little bit of a pent-up demand for another option to be able to bolt onto and integrate with.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's you have the flat, you have your Lighthouse partners, which is the program that Microsoft created. And it's just amazing to see those partners and how fast they move. So, we have a lot of those partners in our stack, vendors like Liquidware and Nerdio and Lakeside Software. Those are just a few, and the things they're doing to help enhance the offering is just staggering. And then, they're, if it wasn't for those ecosystem partners, the product wouldn't be where it is today.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of like when a new airline shows up out of nowhere in a town, an airport, large major airport, and you're like, well, they'll never survive. And then next thing you know, they have something unique about them, and then everybody's talking about them, and they went from they're not going to make it to they're one of the players now in that airport.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the other interesting thing is the situation we're in right now, which is the whole pandemic, and how that forced a lot of companies to rethink their remote work strategy. And you can honestly say that, hey, WVD gained the benefit is where it is today because of that. But it definitely, the whole scenario we're in has forced a lot of IT enterprise to really rethink their remote work strategy, and not only from a access, but also from a scalability and adoption and best of breed point of view. And so obviously Microsoft's at the top there, and it's enabling a lot of companies to really embrace this remote work, remote from anywhere strategy, right?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the key pieces of the Microsoft story, as well as the Amazon story, and not the Google story, is that they have the IaaS workload behind it and the ability to scale up and scale out, as needed. I mean, that's being built for lots of use cases, and virtual desktops just happens to fall right in the same bucket with those use cases as being built for web scale technologies.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll talk about a lot about this, as we start unfolding some of the new things that are coming, and how fast Microsoft is moving to not only enhance the Azure stack, the infrastructure as a service stack, but also to enhance the WVD portion of that offering. So.
And one other piece to all this, which is the probably to me one of the most compelling technical reason, the whole multi-session Windows 10 thing. I mean, that's a tool that Microsoft has at their disposal that they don't seem to want to let anybody else have. Let me tell my story real quick. I was doing Active Directory support at Microsoft when Windows XP Service Pack 2 came out, and at the very last minute they pulled it out. But right before that, it had multi-session Windows XP in it, and I was a Citrix guy who had come over and started working at Microsoft, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, this is going to change the whole game!" And they pulled it back, and I was so frustrated. And after time, I forgot that they had it, and then it shows up again all of a sudden magically. I'm like, oh yeah, they saw the value in this thing, and they waited till the right moment to let it loose again.
Yeah, and what excites me about Windows 10 multi-session is, I say it all the time, and I think you agree, is that if the users aren't happy, the project's going to fail, right? And so Windows 10 enables the user to really be successful, but to be in a desktop scenario that they're familiar with. And yeah, it's multi-session. Yeah, you could do the same thing on 2019, but 2019 versus Win 10 is a very different experience. So to give the user a feeling that they're on a desktop OS, and they are, is a lot. It's a big difference than, hey, you're on a server OS, and yeah, those icons are a little different, and that's okay, versus, hey, you're on Win 10 and you know that. So I think that plays very nicely to the user experience, and that's going to help drive adoption. And then the economies of scale is the biggest thing, right? So you can take on average, $40 per month desktop and bring it down to a $7, $6 to $7 per user per month desktop, and make it very affordable. And then that also allows IT shops to adopt a best of breed partner, right? And make it still affordable on a per user per month scenario.
And then add to that, and when going back to my consulting days, one of my favorite things to do was my pre-project workshop where we go through all the applications and we get to that checkbox. Does the vendor support it on server operating system? And then watch people around the room go, yeah. And then you're like, challenge them a little bit, and they go, oh, well, probably not. Well, now all of a sudden it really is on Windows 10, so that support statement question becomes much more viable. So not only does it look and feel right, but it's actually supportable in most cases.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, and it's a great point too, because a lot of people get fixated on, well, you can get the same look and feel on 2019, but they always forget about is the app supported in a server OS. So yeah, that's a great point.
There's nothing like building out a whole environment on server OS only to find out that one of the applications doesn't support it, 6 months into it, and you have to tear the whole thing down and start over. That's happened once. It was ugly.
Yep. Amen to that. And, a great example of that is Teams, right? Teams obviously runs better in a desktop OS than it does on a server OS. And, Microsoft has done a lot of things with Teams and OneDrive to do, to work well in multi-session now, and even Office for that matter, the multi-session install is supported now. So they've done a lot to enable this use case.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Let's kind of wrap it up with there. We could probably just take this one episode and go on for about 2 days if we really wanted to. We're going to meet up in another day or two and record episode 2 and get into the nuggets related to the August release of WVD. And again, people should expect to see us doing this once a month and be waiting on the edge of their seat for this to come out, I hope. And hopefully they see this as a value add that, XenTegra is doing, and you and myself, we just personally are passionate about trying to get some of this information out. I love making sure people, they at least know everything I know and more. It's a big part of what we do here at XenTegra.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm excited because this is a fast-moving space, but also this area of the business. WVD is moving very quickly and changing month to month and drastically changing quarter to quarter. I'm excited to see what's to come by year end with Ignite on the horizon and. Just some of the commitments I've heard Microsoft make. So it'll be interesting to see if they hit those commitments and then tee them up for 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get some special guests, Brian, Matt, Doug Brown, some of those guys that join us every once in a while and kind of mix it up, and we can kind of argue and debate a little bit, or we can all agree, which knowing those two guys, I know we're not going to all agree on everything, but it'll be good. It'll be good conversation, good dialogue, good to do, and allow people to listen and make fun of us at the same time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, Pete, appreciate you joining for today, and team, we'll wrap this one up and we'll be back shortly. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you for listening to another edition of WVD Monthly, presented by XenTegra, with your host Andy Whiteside and Pete Downing. Thanks to podcast episode guests. Podcast produced by Pete Downing. If you are interested in joining a XenTegra podcast, email info@XenTegra.com. Podcast copyrighted by XenTegra, LLC.